Prison is never a walk in the park, but some prisons take fear and brutality to a whole new level. Here are the prisons where harsh conditions, rampant corruption, and the most dangerous inmates in the world collide. In this video, we'll uncover the world's most infamous prisons, exposing their brutal realities and the haunting stories that make them unforgettable. Just over 10 kilometers north of Bangkok sits one of the world's most infamous correctional facilities, the Bang Kwang Central Prison. Founded in 1933, the facility was designed not as an ordinary prison, but as a place to house some of the worst offenders in Thailand. It has since become known as one of the harshest prisons in the world. Many die within the prison's walls each year, with sickness and violence commonplace.
They put prisoners in leg irons for their first 3 months, not to stop them escaping, but to stop them killing themselves.
I got infections around my ankles and that. They took years for the scars to come off.
On arrival at the facility, all prisoners were traditionally required to wear leg irons for the first 3 months. Death row inmates are also housed at the facility and were required to have their leg irons permanently welded on.
There are serial killers and multiple locked up here, but most prisoners are in for drug dealing offenses.
In 2003, the Thai government launched a war on the drug trade in Southeast Asia. A wave of killings followed, with thousands of people killed on the streets in extrajudicial attacks.
More than 2,000 drug traffickers were killed on the streets last year.
As well as the violence on the streets, the Thai government hands out harsh sentences for any involvement in illegal drugs. Currently in Thailand, you can be sentenced to a year behind bars for possessing just a small amount of cannabis. As for dealers and traffickers, the sentences can be unbelievable.
Most have thrown their lives away for drugs. With the average sentence 25 years or more, many will die in this place.
Many who enter the prison, even those convicted of non-violent offenses, remain behind bars until their dying day.
Caught red-handed with the heroin, and now basically dead man walking. If this guy is convicted, what happens to him?
Because the quantity of drug found, he might get life imprisonment.
So minimum, if he's a caretaker, he may get life. If he is more involved, this man
That be capital punishment.
will die.
Dead.
Many of the inmates have been sentenced to death for drug-related charges, with the prison usually housing about 500 death row inmates alongside the thousands completing a life sentence.
Now, prisoners sentenced to death die by injection. Until last year, they were shot.
A recent change to the method of execution could be seen as an attempt to modernize the prison. However, conditions inside the facility paint a very different picture. Originally built to house 3,000 to 4,000, Bang Kwang has become regularly filled with as many as 8,000 prisoners.
7,000 men are now packed into a prison built to hold around half that number.
Bang Kwang is severely overcrowded, with inmates sleeping on the floor in cells crammed with people. A former British inmate claims to have covered himself in toothpaste to encourage an outbreak of blisters. This earned him a few days in the hospital wing, complete with a bed. Overfilling prisons in Thailand has become commonplace as the war on drugs continues to generate more inmates.
You literally cannot lie flat on your back, put your hands on your stomach. If you do that, your elbows are on two other beds. That's pretty damn close, and you go in, and that's 15 hours a day.
There is approximately 1 warden inside the prison for every 20 prisoners in the average Thai facility, much lower than the UN standard of 1 warden for every 5 prisoners. Due to the cramped conditions, illness spreads quickly. Prisoners are locked in their calls for approximately 15 hours a day, having just a small area for themselves to sit. As you can imagine, this often leads to tensions or violence. This is further exacerbated by the mental well-being of the prisoners. As you can imagine, the horrific conditions can lead not just to irritability and stress, but to severe mental health problems.
Well, I'm sleeping next to a guy now. He just walks around all day, walks around talking to his cell. I'm in the room next to him at night, and I've seen a dog scratch less. Last night, he were itching that much. There must have been about 3 different places where he were bleeding from.
The facility is famous for housing numerous Western prisoners caught up in the Thai drugs trade. In 2012, a British man returned home after spending 18 years in the prison for drug-related charges. The 51-year-old was caught in 1994 attempting to smuggle £1 million worth of heroin out of Thailand. Another British man was arrested in 1990 for heroin charges that he denied. He was sentenced to death but was pardoned and released after 17 years behind bars. Due to the unusually high number of Western prisoners, the facility has earned the nickname the Bangkok Hilton. As well as sharing with other inmates, Thai prisoners also share with hordes of insects and other pests. In these cramped and dirty conditions, you can imagine how quickly inmates become sick. However, if someone becomes ill in the night, they generally won't receive any medical attention until the next morning. Ventilation in the cells is also poor, with temperatures rising to unbearable levels inside the cells. The light remains on all night so that the guards have a better view of the prisoners. Many therefore find it very difficult to sleep inside the prison, further adding to the irritability of the inmates. There is also no separation. Often those who are imprisoned for the most minor of offenses can find themselves sharing a cell with extremely violent offenders. This also extends to those who are still on trial, meaning that just being suspected of a crime is enough to find yourself sleeping shoulder to shoulder with some of Thailand's most dangerous people. Activists say this breaches global prison standards.
During our time at the Bangkok Hilton, prison officer Pashrapun made sure we saw only what they wanted us to see.
Just a moment, would you please?
Some parts of the jail were strictly off limits, as was access to foreign prisoners, including 3 Australian women.
Unfortunately, despite pressure to improve conditions within Bang Kwang, the situation remains severe. For many years, journalists have attempted to paint an accurate picture of life in the prison, but the staff make it difficult to see the worst of what goes on inside.
You sit here and you tell me how terrible the conditions are here, but it doesn't look that bad.
You look beautiful too. Makeup, my dear, cosmetics, no job. Why don't they let you come in the hellhole?
The prison grounds are approximately 79 acres, divided into 2 zones inside and outside the prison walls. It has 2 layers of walls, both built a meter underground and equipped with electric and barbed wire. The prison also has a women's section, which also commonly houses Westerners. The British backpacker Judith Payne found herself locked up in Bang Kwang as a 21-year-old after police discovered drugs in her hostel room. She claims to have seen horrific violence during her short time behind bars. Payne described how other prisoners immediately tried to rob her once she entered the prison. She also claimed that there was great sexual pressure from female wardens against her and other inmates, as well as regular beatings, and even a death from illness inside her cramped cell.
How many women are in this cell?
200.
200 women in here?
Yes.
How do they fit?
Yeah.
Violent and unfair treatment from the guards is reportedly common in both the male and female sections. Some reports claim that if a guard finds a mobile phone in the prison, they would punish the entire cell if no one took responsibility. Solitary confinement is still used as punishment despite being officially banned by law. Prisoners found breaking rules risk finding themselves locked in a 5-foot by 7-foot cell for days at a time. Finding yourself in solitary confinement might be the worst way possible to spend your time. However, usual life in the regular prison cells isn't much better. The official daily schedule begins with breakfast at 6 a.m. Educational programs take place throughout the day, with a break for lunch at 12. Dinner is served at 4:30 p.m., with lockup beginning an hour later. Work programs used to be a common place to pass the time and earn money before being banned in 2013. These programs had become too profitable for the guards, who acted as middlemen to buyers outside. Workshops also gave the prisoners access to dangerous substances such as paint thinner. Generally, each day consists of 15 hours locked inside your cell. Without any means of earning money, the already financially divided prison has become even more unequal. Having money is extremely important inside the facility, as access to decent food and water is only possible with financial support. Inmates only receive 1 bowl of rice and vegetables for free. If an inmate desires better quality food, they must purchase and cook it for themselves. Wealthier prisoners end up employing servants and cohorts who work for them to earn money and provisions. This internal class system is known as chit and has been a fundamental part of the prison's organization for decades. With such a high number of dealers and addicts inside Bang Kwang, a lucrative drugs market also exists, with narcotics available to those who have the means. Having money also gives you access to better health care, with only 1 doctor arriving several times a week to treat sick inmates.
I thought you had to die to go to hell, but hell is right here.
Insects, drugs, violence, overcrowding, malnutrition, inequality, and even death. Just some of the things that you may experience inside the Bang Kwang Central Prison. If you do ever find yourself in Thailand and are thinking about making some extra cash, remember to think back to this video before making any rash decisions. Deep in the heart of Siberia, near the border with Kazakhstan, lies a place where even the faintest whisper of hope is extinguished. This is Black Dolphin Prison, Russia's most secure and brutal correctional facility, a fortress of despair reserved for the worst of humanity. Nicknamed the Island of Hell, it is said that a life sentence here is a fate far worse than death. This prison isn't just infamous, it's legendary in its cruelty. Black Dolphin houses 700 of Russia's most dangerous criminals, men who have committed acts so monstrous their names alone evoke dread. These inmates are not merely murderers or thieves, they are terrorists, serial killers, child molesters, and even cannibals. Collectively, these 700 men are responsible for over 3,500 murders, an average of 5 per inmate.
In this cell, a man who 44 minors and killed 5 children aged 7 to 11.
Behind each locked door is a tale of blood, terror, and broken lives, and the prison ensures no one ever forgets. On the outside of every cell, a grim summary of the inmates' crimes is displayed for all to see, a constant reminder to the guards of the monsters they watch over.
Another man, in a drunken killing frenzy, killed 6 of his friends. In this cell, a murderer killed 11 people.
Black Dolphin was originally founded around 1745 as a jail for exiled convicts who had been sentenced to a life of hard labor. Since then, the inmates inside the prison have changed several times. Over the years, Black Dolphin has housed anyone from petty criminals to political prisoners, before shifting to become home to Russia's most dangerous criminals. Some were sent to Black Dolphin during Stalin's purges in the 1930s, when the Soviet dictator killed around 1 million people to consolidate his power. Among the prisoners is Vladimir Nikolaev, one of the most notorious criminals to walk the halls of Black Dolphin. Nikolaev didn't just kill, he desecrated, a killer with the blood of 2 men on his hands and the taste in his mouth. After returning home from a party, Nikolaev bumped into a stranger when things turned violent. A drunken brawl soon began right outside his own front door, ending in tragedy.
He hit me, and I hit him, and it turned out he died.
Nikolaev claims to have reacted in the sensible way he could think of. He tried to get rid of the body, but a thought occurred to him as he was mutilating the corpse.
Cut off his head, arms, legs. All of a sudden, something kind of struck me, and I thought I would try him.
After murdering 2 men, he committed an unthinkable act. He cooked and distributed their flesh as food, tricking others into unknowingly partaking in his crime.
I dragged him to the bathroom, undressed him, and started cutting him apart. I gave some meat to one of my friends. He took it home, gave it to his wife. She made dumplings with it. She had some herself and fed it to her children.
Nikolaev's story is but one of hundreds, each as chilling and horrific as the last. Other prisoners include Saeed Amirov, a former mayor who became involved in organized crime, murder, and terrorism. Also housed is one of the infamous Gabidulin twins, who together murdered at least 14 women from 1989 to 2000. Another of Russia's most infamous serial killers, Kegashbek Shamshievich Orenbayev, is also incarcerated at the prison. Known as the Evil Ginsky Ripper, Orenbayev murdered 6 women between 1991 and 2012 before committing horrific sexual acts and mutilation upon their bodies after death. Life inside Black Dolphin is meticulously designed to break a person. There is no freedom, no privacy, no reprieve. Inmates are confined to cells measuring just a few square meters, where they spend nearly every hour of their lives. Meals are slid through a narrow opening in the door, and human contact is non-existent. Surveillance is absolute. Each cell is under 24-hour camera monitoring, with guards checking on inmates every 15 minutes. The lights never dim, even at night, ensuring that darkness, a small mercy, remains out of reach. Prisoners are forbidden from sitting or lying on their beds during the day. Instead, they must stand in their cells for up to 16 hours, a constant reminder of their subjugation. Only during the brief 90-minute exercise period are they allowed out, but even this comes with its own dehumanizing procedures. During these exercises, inmates are led to a small outdoor cage. To prevent escape or memorization of the prison layout, they are blindfolded, handcuffed, and forced to bend at the waist as they shuffle through the corridors. Most prisoners will only ever see fragments of the facility, a glimpse of a wall, the steel bars of their cage, or the boots of the guards who enforce their captivity. Black Dolphin is no ordinary prison. It is a fortress of despair. Over 1,000 guards patrol its corridors, supported by more than 100 police dogs. Every corner of the facility is fortified, every movement calculated to suppress even the faintest thought of rebellion.
To call them people, it makes your tongue bend backwards just to say it. I have never felt any sympathy for them.
The prison's isolation amplifies its cruelty. Siberia's cold winds howl relentlessly outside, a chilling reminder of the world that inmates will never experience again. For the majority of the prisoners here, there is no parole, no chance of release. A sentence at Black Dolphin is a death sentence, only drawn out over decades of unrelenting monotony. Yet even in this abyss, there are slivers of privilege. Prisoners may read newspapers, books, or listen to the radio. A library was added in recent years, though the selection is carefully curated. Inmates are also permitted to work, earning a small wage that can be spent on basic items, food, or restitution to victims' families. But these privileges are an illusion, a mockery of freedom. Every aspect of an inmate's life is tightly controlled. A guard's watchful eyes ensure there is no solace, no escape from the weight of their crimes. For most, Black Dolphin is a one-way ticket to oblivion. These inmates will never again feel the warmth of the sun, hear the laughter of a loved one, or experience the taste of freedom. Their days blur into an endless routine of standing, eating, and waiting. For what? Even they may not know. The walls of Black Dolphin don't just confine, they erase. The men inside are stripped of everything, their freedom, their dignity, even their humanity. What remains is a hollow existence, a life spent in constant surveillance, with no future beyond the cold steel bars. Black Dolphin is more than a prison. It is a living monument to justice without mercy. It stands as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity and the length society will go to punish those who transgress its most sacred laws. This is not just a place where men are confined. It is a place where they are forgotten, a place where names and faces fade, leaving behind only the horrors of their crimes. If stories like these send a shiver down your spine, subscribe for more. We delve deep into the world's darkest corners to uncover the truth about the places and people most would rather forget. Located just north of the bustling city of La Paz, Bolivia, San Pedro Prison is one of the most infamous and bizarre correctional facilities in the world. The very nature of San Pedro, a place where inmates essentially govern themselves, has drawn both fascination and horror, as it offers a glimpse into a world where the lines between lawlessness and survival blur. The facility became famous ever since author Rusty Young published Marching Powder, which details the life of Thomas McFadden, a Liverpudlian caught smuggling drugs who spent years inside this notorious prison. During his time behind bars, McFadden met with Young, describing the prison's shocking conditions and system from behind bars. Young later wrote the stories down into a book, which brought international attention to this totally unique facility. San Pedro is unlike any other prison. It operates more like a small town than a correctional facility, with its own set of informal rules, businesses, and hierarchy. The prison, originally built to house around 600 prisoners, often holds over 3,000, contributing to overcrowding and challenging living conditions. Upon entering, inmates must pay for their cells, with wealthier prisoners having the ability to rent larger spaces, sometimes even with families. This creates an internal class system where the more affluent prisoners can buy luxuries, such as better food, more space, and protection, while the poor live in dire conditions. San Pedro houses a variety of criminals, from petty offenders to some of Bolivia's most dangerous criminals. Many inmates are involved in drug-related offenses, particularly related to Bolivia's cocaine trade, which has made the country one of the largest producers of cocaine in the world. Some prisoners, like Thomas McFadden, were caught smuggling drugs internationally, while others are serving sentences for violent crimes. Despite the range of offenses, the common denominator in the prison is the struggle for survival, which often involves aligning with powerful gangs or paying for privileges that could mean life or death in the harsh environment. Violence within San Pedro is commonplace, often fueled by the overcrowded, tense atmosphere and the prison's lack of effective oversight. Gang activity is rampant, with many prisoners continuing their criminal enterprises from inside. Drug trafficking, including cocaine production, is one of the primary sources of income for both the inmates and the guards. This link to the illicit drug trade has made the prison a hotspot for some of Bolivia's most dangerous criminals. Prisoners often use violence to settle disputes, gain power, or control access to resources such as food, medical care, and living space. One of the most striking features of San Pedro is the presence of inmates' families. Children, spouses, and even extended family members live within the prison's walls, which has turned the facility into something of a city. Inmates are allowed to keep their families with them, a fact that has led to debates about human rights and the ethical implications of raising children in such a dangerous and oppressive environment. Families have become a part of the prison's informal economy, with women and children selling food and goods inside the prison. However, the presence of families also complicates the already difficult living conditions, as it adds to the overpopulation and further challenges the ability to maintain any semblance of order. Living conditions inside San Pedro are harsh. Cells are small, and many prisoners share their space with multiple inmates, leading to overcrowding. Basic hygiene facilities are often insufficient, and the lack of proper sanitation makes the spread of disease a constant threat. Medical care is limited, with only a small number of doctors available to treat the prisoners. Inmates must rely on their own resources, often purchasing medication or paying for better treatment from outside sources. Malnutrition is a common issue, as prisoners with no money are left to survive on a basic diet of rice and vegetables, while wealthier inmates can afford better food and have access to more comfortable accommodations. San Pedro's guards, who are poorly paid and often corrupt, play a minimal minimal role in maintaining order. The prison is effectively controlled by the inmates themselves, and it is common for guards to turn a blind eye to illegal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, and even violent acts. The bribery system within the prison is well documented, with guards and officials often accepting money to look the other way. This rampant corruption has allowed the prison's unique structure to continue functioning outside of any meaningful government control. Situated high in the Andean Mountains, San Pedro's location adds to its notoriety. Its elevated position allows it to be almost impossible to escape from, surrounded by steep terrain and difficult access points. The prison was originally designed to house a small number of prisoners, but as Bolivia's prison population grew, San Pedro began to overflow. The overcrowding has exacerbated nearly every issue within the facility, from health concerns to violence and lack of basic resources. Prisoners often sleep on the floor in conditions that are unhygienic and uncomfortable. The extreme overcrowding also puts immense pressure on the limited staff and facilities. San Pedro's peculiar structure has attracted attention from tourists, journalists, and documentary makers from around the world. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, the prison even allowed guided tours, where tourists could walk through the facility and learn about the life of its prisoners. The tours were often led by inmates, and it wasn't uncommon for tourists to exchange money or goods for a more comfortable experience or safer passage through the facility. However, this practice was stopped in the late 2000s due to increasing concerns about safety and the spread of corruption. Today, tourism is heavily restricted, and the inner workings of the prison are more obscured, but it still serves as a symbol of the lawlessness and inequality that persists in Bolivia's prison system. While the prison has undergone some reforms in recent years, the fundamental structure and chaotic organization of San Pedro remain largely the same. Efforts to curb corruption, reduce overcrowding, and improve conditions have had limited success. The prison continues to be a place of immense inequality, with the rich inmates enjoying privileges that the poor can only dream of. The extreme violence and illegal activities continue to thrive, and while the Bolivian government has attempted to reform the system, change has been slow. For many, San Pedro remains a symbol of how the prison system can fail to protect its inhabitants and allow corruption and crime to flourish unchecked. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Let us know in the comments which of these prisons you found most gruesome, and also let us know which prisons you'd like us to cover next.